Coming up next on Another View, the 2013 school year is in session, and there's a new plan for Norfolk Public Schools, a plan that will ensure full accreditation, increase academic achievement of all students, create safe, innovative, and enriching learning environments, and hire and retain highly qualified faculty and staff. And there's a role for creative partnerships as well. So how to get all of this accomplished? Key educational leaders are here, including Superintendent Dr. Samuel King. As part of WHRO's American Graduate Let's Make It Happen initiative, today we're talking about a new day for Norfolk Public Schools, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
And good Friday afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. WHRV has embarked on a multi-year nationwide Corporation for Public Broadcasting initiative to improve on-time graduation rates and lower dropout rates. It's called American Graduate Let's Make It Happen. Each month on Another View, we will take an in-depth look at issues critical to the academic success of our children. So today we examine the new plan for Norfolk Public Schools. Kids all over Hampton Roads went back to school this week, and so did thousands of faculty, staff, and administrators. It's an exciting time for everyone, and I would imagine the buzz is really high within the halls of Norfolk Public Schools. There's a new sheriff in town, as the saying goes, and he and the Norfolk School Board have a plan to make NPS an outstanding school division. Please welcome to Another View, Dr. Samuel King, Superintendent of Norfolk Public Schools. Dr. King, thanks so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. I am extremely happy to be here.
Great, thank you. School Board Chair, Dr. Kirk Houston.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. How are you? Kevin Monroe, who is principal at Booker T. Washington High School. Hi, Kevin.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you again. And Dr. Marvin Bright, Provost for Tidewater Community College's Norfolk Campus. Dr. Bright, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
We appreciate it. So now I know we have some serious things to talk about and some fun things, but I have to start this show by saying to my audience, ladies, I've got to tell you there's some serious eye candy in this studio today. Now, I just had to say that, and they're all smiling. But we want to talk about what's going on with Norfolk Public Schools. And I know that at the end of the month, Dr. King, the information will come out about accreditation for this year based on the SOLs and so forth. But preliminary numbers tell us that graduation rate is up from last year, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What are you expecting in terms of accreditation and the continuation of the graduation rate rising?
In terms of where we are at present, I feel that the preliminary results are pretty much on target. Our issue and concern centers on moving forward from there. Thus, the importance of the priorities that are in place now. Mm-hmm. So in order to address that, I'd like to kind of pretty much allude to those. There are 7 priorities that the board developed in the midst of a retreat that was scheduled about a month or more ago. Mm-hmm. That's significant because the 7-member board came together along with the superintendent and many of the staff members to take a look at all of the statistical data and analyses that would come into play to impact teaching and learning mm-hmm. and student outcomes. And of course, a major facet of that would be full accreditation, in addition to increasing the percentage of students meeting and exceeding standards.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to go through each of those priorities individually, but before I do, Dr. Houston, what was different about this retreat in terms of moving Norfolk Public Schools forward?
I think the approach in terms of a clearly defined objective with coming out of the retreat with clear priorities for the year that would be the basis for our plan for the year. One of the things we found very attractive about Dr. King in our search was his certification in strategic planning and his emphasis on the importance of having a blueprint that guides all the work of the district. And that is exactly what he brought into the retreat, was that kind of teamwork with the board that encouraged, let's be sure we end this weekend with clearly defined priorities, because that's what we're going to build our blueprint for this year on. And so going in with that objective really helped us to center our
Now,
work.
let me make something very, very clear, because I want to make sure that people's expectations are where they need to be.
Sure.
This 7-point plan, is all of this to be accomplished in this 1 year, or is this an overall plan with different tactics?
This current 7-point plan is precisely related to 2012-13 school year.
Okay.
This current school year. Of course, there are goals, action steps, measures, targets, and absolutes that will be tied to each of these priorities. And the importance here is to begin the work in a way that we're going to get a bump in student achievement immediately. And so to respond to your question, this is about this current school year and our expectations.
Okay, the first one then is ensure a full accreditation. I'll let either one of you take that.
Let me just kind of tie it back to the first question you raised,
Okay,
which
Dr.
was
Houston.
concerning the high schools. And I'll just quickly add that out of our 5 high schools, as a result of the new graduation completion index requirement, 4 of the 5 slipped beneath the line of accreditation based on that
graduation
exactly.
requirement.
And this year, 3 of the 4 that 2 of the 4 did rise to the level of meeting that graduation completion index, and all 4 that did not last year made significant increases. So I think that's noteworthy.
So we're moving forward
Absolutely.
in that. So what else needs to be done then in terms of addressing this first priority?
Well, it's stated in a format such that it's designed to ensure full accreditation, because that was important for the group, because as I heard the discussion and also participated in the discussion, how could we commit to leaving anyone behind in the process? However, when you look at planning, you have to, and developing goals, you must be smart about what you are doing, specific about those goals, develop goals that are measurable, develop goals that are definitely attainable and goals that can be achieved. You need to develop those goals that are going to be realistic, and also goals that are going to be timely. So as a part of this particular priority, we have targets at the elementary level, targets at the middle school level, and targets at the high school level related to full accreditation. And another category is called the absolute. The absolute is 100%. And so when you consider the target, we consider where we were with elementary schools. And I don't have that percentage before me at this point, but we had a higher percentage of elementary schools already fully accredited. And then once we took a look at middle school, then we had some concerns there. And then after we had an opportunity to take a look at high school, then there were some concerns there. But some examples of improvement as well. So the targets that you'll find in our blueprint and in our plan would be aligned to those things. However, the absolute category is always going to be 100%.
100% of all of the schools being accredited.
In other words, you commit to growth from where you are forward as it relates to that. And there are specific things that we're going to be doing to begin to move forward as it relates to that.
Okay, and we'll talk about more about that in a bit.
Okay.
Number 2 is increase academic achievement for all students. And I've heard you say this on several occasions, and I'd like you to expound upon it just a little bit. The whole idea of raising the floor and the ceiling simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Explain to our audience what you mean by that.
Well, when you consider student achievement and you consider our school system, we have certain demographics, we have certain socioeconomics and or socioeconomic challenges, one may say. But when you take a look at approximately 34,000 students, we're responsible for the aggregate, which would be the total of the students across all subgroups. But when you disaggregate the data, then you also realize that you're separating out African American student subgroups to take a look at where we are with those students now, baseline, and where we need to go. And also we're separating out our white students to take a look at where they are and where we need to go, as well as Hispanic students, Asian students, multiracial students, in addition to students with disabilities, also limited English proficient students, all of the above. And I mentioned the economically disadvantaged piece. When you consider that, we must have high expectations for all across the board. Even years ago, when we worked from an accountability standpoint under the auspices of No Child Left Behind, that was a requirement. So this is not doing different when you disaggregate the data. This allows us to utilize the same high expectations for each and every subgroup across the board, meaning we want to see them achieve at the same high level. However, being realistic, as you analyze the data, you also realize that there are huge gaps. There are huge gaps across performance as it relates to student subgroups. And once you pinpoint those gaps and those baselines, then you commit to improvement and how to hone in on improvement. And so if we're going to begin to eliminate those gaps, then we know that we're going to be required to raise the floor and the ceiling simultaneously. The significant piece, however, is that we must accelerate the rate at which we raise the floor if we're going to close and eliminate that gap. So you have some students that were struggling, some students that were not meeting standards. You have other students that were on target. You have students that were excelling. We must differentiate instruction in a way that we're going to meet the needs of each child. And the way that you do that is by pinpointing the gap to standard as it relates to those particular subject areas, and that's what that means.
Okay, Dr. Houston, I'm going to get you on this one. Improve climate, safety, and attendance.
Sure. Well, every one of these priorities have a contribution or relate to student success in the district. And so all of them play an important role in how well our students perform. When we talk about climate, we're talking about student discipline and safety, staff safety, classroom management, how much time teachers have to spend in disciplining, which takes away from
instructional time.
And so where there is a safe and orderly environment, the cleanliness of buildings, all of that contributes to the success and the performance of students.
Okay, and the fourth one is become a school board of distinction. What does that mean?
That means that the school board, along with the superintendent, forming, in our case, an 8-person governance team, achieves the training and the professional development that enables us to rise to that highest level of performance as a school board, the school board of distinction, and we're able to operate at optimum capacity in working together, more importantly, as a governance team, and that includes the superintendent.
Okay, there are 3 other ones I want to go through fairly quickly because I want to bring the other gentleman into the conversation. But promote Norfolk Public Schools to reflect outstanding accomplishments of staff, teachers, and students. In other words, talk more about what's the good things, Dr. King,
Absolutely.
that are going on.
We're going to be transparent. And as we move forward, you'll find, again, with those targets that appear in the plan, though the progress across those targets will be routinely reported to the public and also to the board, thus pinpointing incremental growth throughout. This is of paramount importance because we know that part of the interest for us and for our division centers on being able to attract families back. Because if you look at the trends in terms of population within our school system, we've lost students. Not only pinpointing those that we've lost, but also maintaining the families that are with us now. Yes, and nothing beats good results or pinpointing the fact that you are moving in that direction. And so we feel that by doing so, we must also have a robust plan for communication and marketing, and that's what I mean when I pinpoint being transparent. Because in any complex organization such as ours, there will be those positives, but there will be those issues of concern. And when you're transparent about those issues of concern, you report those out, but you also report out your plans for being proactive and your plans for reacting to whatever those issues
Whatever
are.
the issue was. Okay.
Yes.
Number 6 is develop and coordinate a capital improvement plan for facilities and technology to enhance teaching and learning. And then number 7 is attract, retain, and help to develop strong academic families and highly qualified teachers and staff. So we have the 7 priorities. Kevin, you're a principal at Booker T. Washington High School. I hear Dr. King talk about analyzing the numbers and looking at the data. How do you put it into actual practice? What are the expectations on the ground?
Well, I'm in total agreement with Dr. King and his philosophy and his methods for going about improving the school system. In my letter to my faculty welcoming them back from the summer, one of my last lines was, anything less than full accreditation for Booker T. Washington High School this coming school year would be a disappointment. Based on everything that we're preparing to do, what we have in place, that's our goal. We're not looking at anything less than being fully accredited. Having said that, we're off to a very good start with the school year, and it goes into Dr. King's message. He has a NPS cycle for results, which kind of goes back into raising the ceiling and the floor simultaneously. You have to ask those questions. What's being done for the students who aren't doing well, but what's also being done at the same time for the students who are excelling? And you have to have the concrete evidence. And I think that's the difference. He's looking at concrete evidence across the board. What are you doing? If it's not working, okay, what can we do to improve it? So I think with that increased focus on change, not so much for the sake of change, but for the betterment of the students, I think it's going to work. We have the most positive energy at Booker T. Washington High School. This is going to my 4th year that I've had since I've been there. So, I think that's probably the same way in other schools across the district.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We're talking about Norfolk Public Schools today and the 7-point plan to continue the work that the school system is currently doing. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Dr. King, I know you've held one community conversation, and you're holding another one next Tuesday, the 12th, at Wednesday the 12th at Ruffner Academy. What do people tell you? I understand more than 100 people came, which I think is fabulous because I know how hard it is to get people to come out. But what are they talking about? What are the concerns?
The count that my administration gave me was in excess of 160.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'd like to think that was the accurate number, since that's the highest of the 3 that I've heard. But these community forums are important to us because at the same time that we are implementing the current 7-point plan, we are simultaneously beginning to develop a 5-year strategic plan. And so the intent here is to utilize this current blueprint inclusive of these 7 points for this school year. Once we end the school year, we should be in position to, in a seamless manner, begin implementation of the 5-year plan, which is in phases. And so I mentioned that as it relates to the public forum because it is a component of that process for the 5-year strategic planning. What we're going to do is utilize the data that we receive from those forums as a review piece and a discussion piece for a planning team that will be in place to begin the work of the 5-year strategic plan. In other words, that forum, we opened it by the superintendent being able to give somewhat of a status report of where we are now, what the history has been as it relates to student achievement for our school system, and where we're headed. So I had an opportunity to speak to the large group in that manner. And then we transitioned into a small group session where we had a variety of tables, small groups, tables of 10, and each table had a topic. Those topics were all related to these 7 points of interest. And so parents and a cross-section of the community had an opportunity to sit and talk about things of interest to them. We also provided facilitators at each of those small group tables to help lead the discussion along, not to dictate, but to help with the flow of the discussion. And we ended the night by utilizing a panel of my cabinet members. And so I had about about 6 or 7 people on my panel, and we took questions from each of those tables about the work. Any of those burning issues or burning concerns that they might have had related to those topics, and documented that information in a way that once the large planning team comes together Monday of next week, as a matter of fact, and it is a microcosm of the community, by the way, they will utilize that information to in a study format to determine strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, etc. And
we,
so that's
we got
the
a question on Facebook. They want to know if you welcome people who don't live in Norfolk to come to the community forum.
Certainly. I mean, it's open. It's open to anyone that wants to attend the forum. It's absolutely open. I think that's interesting. So I deem that a positive.
Well, I mean, I think part of that comes from the whole idea of regionalism also, which brings me to you, Dr. Bright, to bring you into the conversation. Sure. But once a student graduates from Norfolk Public Schools or any of the public schools in the Hampton Roads region, many of them come to you, come to Tidewater Community College. What are you seeing when they get there? What do you need to see as the school system is working on improving the rates? What do you expect to see out of that outcome in terms of stronger students?
Well, and focusing on the positive, I see students who are very bright. They're excited to know that they can actually continue their education at the higher education level. I also see many different pathways, many different goals. Some of the students will come in and they want to actually get into the workforce as soon as possible. So we focus on those technical career type programs. We see other students who wants to actually come and get a degree and transfer, to a four-year institution. So I see a lot of positive, a lot of hopes. On the other end, I mean, there are challenges. I think we will build better relationships with Dr. King here, especially with the Norfolk Campus and the Norfolk Public Schools, better partnerships so we can better understand the needs and how we can meet the needs of the students coming in.
Because it behooves you to have a stronger student to come to you from the beginning as opposed to having to deal with the remedial.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a win-win situation there. If we can get more students that are coming in that are academically prepared to go on into higher education, yes. But there's also things that we need to do on our end. We need to look at the placement, testing aspect of things, when we test, how we test, how we better prepared students to make that transition into higher education. Believe it or not, I mean, there is a really big gap between May, when students graduate, and when they come to us in late August. I mean, there's a lot of things going on during that time period. So how are we preparing students to be better prepared to take a placement exam? And Dr. King and I talked about many things that we could do during the summer. Boot camps, academic boot camps focus on mathematics and English. So there's a number of things.
Kevin, I see you shaking your head. You agree with the partnership that needs to come together? Oh,
most definitely. You're looking at K through 16, and I think the more that we decide to work together, like Dr. Bright said, it's a win-win for everyone. He and I have already had some very good discussions in terms of partnering with Booker T. Washington High School and helping to better prepare our students so that they can go to TCC. And from TCC you can go anywhere you want to go. So that's what we're looking at now, as well as dual enrollment classes.
This whole idea of looking at the academic spectrum from K through 16 as opposed to K-12, fairly new?
I would think so.
Dr. King?
Yes, I would say yes, because the emphasis for us now centers on college and career readiness. Not simply college readiness, but college and career readiness. And in order to do that, you must begin early. And it is important to look at it across the board for us, because as you analyze the results, we find the differences and the variance in the readiness levels of our children from economically disadvantaged households when they enter school. And so compared to those that do not come from economically disadvantaged households, and I mention that because we're at 66 to 67% economically disadvantaged right now in our overall population, which has huge implications for safety nets and huge implications for closing the gap. And our expectation is that once our students leave us at the high school level, that they are ready to go on to the next level. We want 100% to be ready to enter college, but we also know that 100% will not choose college. We know that some will choose vocational or technical. We know that some will choose the military. We know that some will enter the world of work. But I think the significant piece is, number one, it is our intent to prepare 100% to be ready. However, if they choose to enter the world of work, we want them to be able to enter the world of work with an industry level certification or some area of specialty.
So it's the whole idea of taking care of everyone, regardless of which direction they decide to go. Go ahead.
And that's why the strategic plan is important, because the items that I am mentioning, we're not equipped to carry forward at the 100% level with all of those. And so we know we need to focus on what I refer to as career academies. We know we need to have a laser-like focus on student achievement across the board with all children. We know we need to reach down earlier in terms of early learning and partnering with different entities that will allow us to increase the readiness levels of children once they enter our schools. And the other end of the spectrum is, of course, what you already alluded to.
Sure.
The other end of the spectrum would be post-secondary, which is what we speak of with TCC and other post-secondary institutions. So, thus the entire spectrum.
The entire spectrum.
Yes.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. If you're just joining us, we're talking about Norfolk Public Schools with Superintendent Dr. Samuel King, School Board Chair Dr. Kirk Houston, Principal of Booker T. Washington High School Mr. Kevin Monroe, and Provost for the Norfolk Campus of Tidewater Community College Dr. Marvin Bright. Patricia joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Patricia, you're on the air.
Hi. My question goes to what efforts at communication across city lines exist with administrators. The reason I ask this question is some of the same problems that affect Norfolk Public Schools obviously affect schools in Virginia Beach, in Chesapeake, and Portsmouth. And when students graduate from the Norfolk Public Schools, they also might conceivably and will conceivably work in other jurisdictions. So there is an interest. I would think that there would be an interest regionally in making sure that all students are as well prepared for that workforce as possible. With that in mind, has there ever been an effort to compare notes, to talk, and to work together to figure out what works, to raise the floor and ceiling simultaneously?
I feel that
Thank you, Patricia.
You're absolutely right. The variables that impact us here locally also will impact the region. I can say that at this point, during my 2-month tenure here, I can say that at this point, we have entered into discussions about the implications of the career academy approach. Not all students will take interest in that, although it will be a very rigorous opportunity. So when I mention that is regional in that the discussion is of interest across the board and across the regions. The other item that I would mention would be there is a group of superintendents in this region that meet routinely. I will be a part of that meeting very soon. That is not new. And I would like to think that during those meetings they share a common discussion of analyses and challenges across the board as they occur. And when you think about the analysis from a career academy approach, I can say to you that my committee did do research across the region to determine the likelihood of employability across certain lines, and determined that it really relates to the STEM initiative and now many call it STEAM initiative. 3 out of 4 jobs in future years will in some way be related to science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and or the arts. And
Thank
we
you
know
for
that.
adding that A.
That's very good.
And so, that's important. So I think that we're probably scratching the surface with that. But entering here in Norfolk for me, of course, I am beginning with the 34,000 students here initially. And we have much work to do with that. So,
I heard a story yesterday on NPR. And they were talking about a school district that is right outside of the city of Detroit, where a mother complained that her daughter was now entering the 12th grade and was reading on a 4th grade level. And the ACLU has put together a class action suit against the school system because the school system's rules said if your child is struggling at grade 4 or 5 and then they are entitled to remedial help. And her feeling is, my kid never got this remedial help. And, my initial reaction was, but what about the parent? What about the parent's responsibility in all of this? And I throw that out to you all because I really think that one of the key components to any good education is just how much a parent is involved. Dr. Bright, I'll start with you.
I'm surprised that the parent just found out now that
well, actually, she said that according to the story that she, by the time the child got to the 8th grade, she asked them to hold the child back, and they didn't, and they so promoted her to the 9th, then to the 10th, and now she's in the 12th. Now that, again, I'm just going based on the story that was presented yesterday, and the suit goes to court in a couple of months. But again, my question is, how much do we have to rely on the schools, and how much should parents rely on themselves to make sure that their kid, if they can't get it out of that 8-hour day, in that school system, that they get it from somewhere else?
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe in community involvement, and I one of the things I don't believe that we have addressed very well is, increasing. I think we've addressed it, trying to find ways of increasing parental involvement, community involvement in education. I think now we just have to get out of the box, looking at it as a quote unquote a total community involvement. I do know that public schools, they do a pretty good job of catering to specific needs of students. In terms of IEPs, they're able to curtail their curriculum. They're able to designate actual counselors and teachers to an individual student need. So
what's an IEP?
Individual, it's like an individual learning plan, but your education plan. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm very aware of that. But again, in any situation, there's always some type of isolated thing that is occurring. I empathize with the parent. I have more of a concern about that student and that school district in Detroit, because it is unfortunate, a very metropolitan area. I worked in Philadelphia, also worked in New York. And students some of them do get lost. It's not an excuse, but I do emphasize for the parents.
Kevin, what would you say to a student who makes it that far, but they're reading on the 4th grade level? Is there help? Would Norfolk Public Schools do something differently?
Well, yes, and let me start off by saying, first of all, I don't think it's fair to blame the school system by itself or blame the parent by itself. It's a partnership. The students that do well, it's an equal partnership between the family and the community and the school. We do a lot to put things in place. I'm a high school principal. We screen our students that come in the 9th grade that may not be reading up to the level they need to be, and we put certain things in place if it's not remediation programs in their schedule, or either we'll have them come back after school and we'll do some reading exercises throughout their other classes. So we try to flag those students as soon as they come in as freshmen so that we can catch them up by the time they get to the 10th, 11th, 12th grade and get out of there. Because, we all personally feel that if a student doesn't make it, we failed the student. So, we're not trying to put the blame on anyone, but we have to, I think the key is recognizing it as early as possible. At Booker T, the teachers make contact with the parents when the students aren't doing well from the first 9 weeks. So there aren't any surprises later on.
And there's sometimes a stigma, though, because this happens on the college level, too, where a parent, at some point, they go, well, they're 15, they're 16, they're getting ready to go to college, they're in high school. I don't need to be at the school as often, or I don't need to be as connected, where we find that is really when they need to be connected,
When I spoke
correct?
to my incoming freshman class last month, one of the first things I told the parents was that I needed them here, not only at this meeting, but throughout the 4 years of their child's career. And I told them the exact same thing. As they get older, you tend to let them go a little bit, but they need you just as much because they have more things going on than they did when they were younger. So that's a problem.
Dr. Houston, do you want to respond?
Well, I'm kind of stuck on the question that's kind of got this part of the conversation underway. And certainly there is both parental and educational system responsibilities. And I think a lot of work has to be done to educate parents, to provide them with the support and training that they need to be able to support their children. That's one of the things on the list for our CDC, which we'll talk about perhaps another time. But all the times parents are just ill-equipped. And they care, but they just don't know what to do. Intervention for that child in Detroit should have taken place a long time ago.
Before she ever got to the 12th
Absolutely.
grade.
That's a problem that started early on.
Actually, Dr. King, we also had another Facebook question that talks about the parent academy that you had at Rockdale County Public Schools in Georgia, and wanting to know if you plan to implement a similar program here in Norfolk, and if so, what is the plan to involve parents from lower socioeconomic groups who are normally not involved in the education of their children?
Okay. The answer is yes. We plan to implement a version of that and in a format that is appropriate for us here. And the plan for involvement of all parents across all socioeconomic lines really does center on how we communicate. We know that we must utilize our parent liaisons that we have in place at each school, which means that not just inviting parents into the school, but we must go out into the community as well. And so a part of our blueprint now that's in place, it is inclusive of that. And so in order to get those parents from economically disadvantaged households involved and engaged, we know we have to go out into the community to do so. And we're poised. We have those liaisons there, and that's what they are there to do. And so we will begin that work. But I must reflect back to the question that is related to this in terms of the parent who has the child who is now a high schooler, but he or she might be extremely concerned. Accountability is extremely important, and you heard the three gentlemen mention it. I echo that. It is absolutely our responsibility as a school system to do the things that we need to do to ensure that our children are reading and that they are comprehending by the end of third grade. And it is extremely important to do that. When that happens, much of what we are talking and speaking to at this point will change. And it does have implications for how you prepare parents from a parenting standpoint to be able to do so, because many times parents are not equipped. Many parents don't know that children need to be read to. And simply put, you train them and you go out into the community and give them those bullets in terms of what they can do. Because when you speak of economically disadvantaged households, many times those parents did not have a good experience in school themselves, and therefore could be hesitant or intimidated by coming into the school. So,
actually, we have a program here at WHRO called Learning. Anytime is learning time. Right. And we have a teacher who actually goes out and works, particularly with our military community, to teach parents on how from preschool up, how to utilize, a trip to the supermarket and how you can turn that into a learning experience, et cetera. I want to follow up on one other question that we got on Facebook, and this goes to you, I guess, Dr. King and Dr. Houston. This woman wants to know, she says, would you ask what is the percentage of African-American students who are over 16 from the 9th to the 12th grade and are not in their correct grade, and have they been placed as first priority to move up to graduate on time? I know it's a little convoluted, but I guess just in general, that's that ceiling, making sure that we raise the ceiling. The floor.
I guess the question is, am I going to ask Who about?
Well, you talk about
They-
overage. Now
Yeah,
you're talking about
they're
overage
talking
for
about
grade.
overage for a grade, and what is the school system doing
Right.
to make sure that those kids
Right.
graduate?
Let me just say this, and then the two practitioners can certainly add far more clarity to it. Certainly, when you talk about kids overage for grade in high school, normally they are far behind in their credits, and oftentimes struggling students in reading and math. And so identifying exactly what their needs and issues are and credit recovery or how to get those kids on track for graduation is a major part of our work. And Kevin and Dr. King can speak more specifically to how
Dr.
we
King.
do that.
We have too much of that occurring. I'll be the first to say that as I take a look at the analyses, and you don't point fingers, when that happens. You just take a look at the statistics and determine what those stats are telling you, and then move forward from there. We have too many students that are overage in middle school, and I know that right now, today. We have too many students at the high school level that are overage and woefully behind on credits. We also know that we have to create non-traditional approaches for those students, and for example, open campus approach. And we're not equipped at this point to do so, but we're rapidly moving in that direction. When I mention open campus, that's a non-traditional approach for a student who's 16 years of age or older and in high school but woefully behind on credits will have an opportunity in an open campus status to maybe they're working, because many of them are working and taking care of other siblings, and that has probably further exacerbated the problem. And if that's the case, that's not going to change. And if we know that that's not going to change, open campus will give them the opportunity to attend a different campus, utilize a flexible schedule. We would be open early morning and also late nights,
To be able to accommodate whatever's going on.
That's right, accommodate their schedules. And some say that is an enabling approach, but I would disagree, because if we're going to reach all students, then we're going to have an answer for them. And we utilize credit recovery in a very vigorous way for them, and the rigor does not change. And I'm not speaking of something that is a theory. This is something that has worked and has been done. And it has been my experience to implement such program, and we've done that before.
Okay, we've got about 4 minutes left, and I want to get this last call in. Henry joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Henry.
Yes, good afternoon. The questions to your panel. You mentioned this 5-year strategic plan, and the question is, given the sense of urgency, is what kind of metrics are we using, or we will be used on an annual basis to make sure that we are tracking towards that 5-year strategic goal?
Okay.
Great question.
That's a great question. Thank you for the call, Henry.
If you think back to what we briefly described for the current blueprint this year for 2012-13, we have measures that we are clearly describing related to each objective and related to each goal. We also have targets, and they are numerical targets from a quantitative standpoint, and in rare cases from a qualitative standpoint as well when it's applicable. Also, we have those absolutes. The accountability piece for you as a stakeholder, external stakeholder, this should be of interest to you, centers on the fact that across each of those, we will routinely report to the board and to the public progress or lack thereof across each of those objectives. And we will be benchmarking that progress. And that's going to be at minimum on a quarterly basis to the board. So this current school year, we're going to implement that with the current blueprint. And we will continue that once we begin implementation of that 5-year strategic plan. Not just that, something else that you should be interested in is that the community has an opportunity to be involved in that in terms of listening, observing, but also to be at the table about those things that are of interest to you, and you will be able to hold this division and organization accountable to those things based on those metrics, quantitative measures and qualitative measures.
Okay, we have less than 2 minutes. I want to ask each of you to give one short thing to parents or students, some word of encouragement. First week of school, what do you want to tell them, Kevin?
Don't be afraid to ask questions, ask for help, and that comes out with the ninth graders. We have a variety of things in place to help everyone reach their goals, but we have to, don't be afraid to ask.
Okay, real quick, Marvin.
Get involved, and success should be the preferred option.
Okay, Dr.
Set personal goals, stay focused, and take responsibility for your area of the work.
Okay, and Dr. King?
We're off to an excellent start, year one, day one. And that parents need to really pinpoint the highest aspirations for their children and this organization and help us do that work and hold each of us accountable.
Fantastic. Thank you all so very much for joining me. I know the hour goes by so quickly, but I will have you back. We will continue this conversation, and we'll be right back. And welcome back. When young people have an opportunity to learn from each other, some pretty amazing things can happen. One Peninsula youth group has witnessed the value of peer mentoring and peer instruction over and over again. Our Lisa Godley gives us an up-close look at how Youth Achieving Change Together, or Uth Act, is making a difference in the lives of students in Hampton.
Our plan to start out with is to start an awareness program on the 26 Seconds campaign, which is, that high school students drop out every 26 seconds. To, kind of show high school students, both the ones that are successful and the ones that are not, just how serious of a problem this is, as well as try to explain just how heavily it's going to impact their lives if, they drop out of high school.
Uth Act teens understand that preparation is an important key to success. So even before the school year began, these young leaders spent time brainstorming about what they want to accomplish this school year. 17-year-old Sheena Bynum, whose friends call her Mocha, was happy to share her thoughts on the dropout crisis.
It just takes a little more effort than people just getting the issue out there and just saying, well, we should do this, we should do that, and actually getting down, getting dirty, and doing something about it.
And that's just what Uth Act does. These teens who are trained as leaders jump right in. They know that in order to make a difference, first you've got to understand the problem, then learn through training and firsthand experiences.
Me personally, I wasn't raised in a typical home with a mother and father. I've been in about 3 foster homes. So my challenge there was that I wasn't stable. And when you're not stable, you don't function well.
Fellow youth leader, 16-year-old Jackie Keener, had this to say.
There's so many issues like poverty, support from teachers, support from students, disengagement. And it's a little challenging because you can't hit every single issue. You have to figure out what are the issues that mostly affect the kids in your community, which ones you can actually do something about, and how you're going to do it.
Youth Achieving Change Together, or Uth Act, is a division of Alternatives, Inc., a nonprofit group commissioned by the City of Hampton to oversee the involvement of young people in leadership and civic engagement roles. The director of Youth Civic Engagement, Allison Grawl, says this year about 100 Uth Act leaders from across the City of Hampton will serve the community using the peer-to-peer method. One of the 3 programs they implemented last year is called Relate.
Relate is a relationship program that teaches kids about dating, violence, and how to have healthy relationships. So the young people themselves went in and taught that during the school day. And they taught that to 9th grade health classes. And that's where we got a lot of our members because they loved it and they wanted to join Uth Act.
Uth Act leaders also studied Howard Gardner's 8 Intelligences. Through their Thrive program, they show their peers that people learn differently, how to identify their gifts, and what careers are connected with certain gifts.
I think for a lot of these kids, it gave them hope. Like, wow, I may not be good in math, but you know what? I'm music smart or I'm nature smart. And so by learning how they were intelligent in the world, it kind of gave them some options. Wow, maybe I could go be a conductor.
Uth Act understands that attacking a problem early on is another important ingredient to a person's success. So they also spend time with elementary school children through a 10-week program called KICK. KICK challenges K through 5th graders to identify problems in their communities and ways those problems can be solved. Mocha says the younger kids were eager to get involved.
It wasn't that we just got the program and did everything for them. They actually learned from it, and we learned too to help improve their school and their community so that it won't just stop there. It will continue on, and they would do it with their friends and other things.
And for these young leaders, that's what it's all about, leaving the lives of those they come in contact with in a better place.
I think it's important that students always have someone to turn to emotionally with their education. I mean, everything. You cannot do this on your own.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And Uth Act continues its work in Hampton and is also expanding to a high school in Newport News. We wish them the very best. Time now for things to view and do in Hampton Roads.
You will be my Saturday love.
The 3rd annual Prostate Cancer Awareness Walk is tomorrow, Saturday, September 8th, from 7:30 a.m. to 8:15 a.m. at the Riverside Cancer Care Center, Warwick Boulevard in Newport News. Mayor McKinley Price is the Grand Marshal. Join survivors, caregivers, government leaders, fraternity and sorority members, and others in this symbolic walk against the disease. Plus, there will be information and free testing available at both the Community Free Clinic of Newport News and Riverside Cancer Care Clinic. Call 594-4060 or 1-800-520-7006 for more information. As we told you earlier in today's program, Dr. Samuel King, Superintendent of Norfolk Public Schools, wants to hear from you to help plan a path to success for Norfolk Public School kids. The next public forum is Wednesday, September 12th at 6 p.m. at Ruffner Academy, May Avenue in Norfolk. Call 628-3459 for more information. Norfolk State University invites you to attend its 1619 The Making of America Conference on September 21st and 22nd at the university. Panelists will explore the arrival of Africans to America, relations among blacks, whites, and Native Americans, the role of women, and the beginning of Virginia's legislature. To register, go to 1619makingofamerica.com. Here's a way that you can help seniors in Newport News. Participate in the Soup for Seniors campaign. Donations of cans of soup or soup mixes are being collected from now until December 21st and will be distributed in January to seniors in the community. You can drop off items at the Disabled American Veterans, Warwick Boulevard, Public Works City Center on Town Center Drive, or C. Waldo Scott Center on Wickham Avenue, all in Newport News. Call 926-6647 to find out more. These and other events are on our website, anotherviewradio.org. And if you missed part of today's program, or you want to listen to some past programs, you can find our podcasts also on anotherviewradio.org. Next week, it's time for the Another View Roundtable. You know, that's going to be lively. We're talking about both the Republican and Democratic conventions, and who knows what Bill Thomas is going to have to say. For producer Lisa Godley, audio engineer Perry Smith, Crystal Romney, who answered our phones, I'm Barbara Ham Lee. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.